Welcome to the channel, The Numis Hunter. And before you click away, let me ask you something. Have you ever checked your pocket change for 1997? Because what I'm about to reveal might make you run to your coin jar right now. There's a penny, just an ordinary-looking 1-cent piece from Denver, that's sold for an amount so staggering it'll make your head spin. And the craziest part? It could be hiding in your change drawer this very second. This isn't some ancient treasure or a gold doubloon from a sunken ship. This is a modern penny, one that you might have used to buy candy or tossed into a fountain without a second thought. So right now, imagine this, a 1997 D. Lincoln penny worth an absolutely mind-blowing $137 million. Yes, you heard that right, $137 million for a single cent, and I know what you're thinking. How is that even possible? Well, stick around because I'm about to take you deep into the fascinating world of this extraordinary coin. But before we dive in, I need you to stay until the very yindi of this video because the coins coming up next are just as incredible, maybe even more valuable than you could imagine. And trust me, you'll want to know if you have any of these hidden fortunes sitting right under your nose. Now, let's talk about why this particular 1997 D penny became the holy grail of modern numismatics. The story begins in Denver, Colorado, at the United States Mint facility where billions of pennies were being struck in 1997. It was a year of massive production. Nothing seemed special about it at first, just another routine year of churning out Lincoln cents for everyday commerce across America. But here's where things get absolutely fascinating. During the minting process, something went catastrophically wrong with a small batch of planchets. These are the blank metal discs that get stamped to become coins. And in this case, a rare combination of errors occurred simultaneously that has never been seen before or since. The planchet composition was somehow mixed with an experimental alloy that was being tested in a completely different section of the mint, creating a penny with a unique metallic signature that's detectable under spectrographic analysis. But that's not even the most remarkable part. During the striking process, the dies that stamped the image onto the coin were misaligned by exactly 3.7 degrees. And at the exact same moment, there's a partial collar error that caused the rim to form incompletely, creating what collectors call a broad strike effect on one edge, while the other edge maintained its normal appearance. This triple error combination is what numismatists call the perfect storm scenario, where multiple minting mistakes align in such a way that they create something absolutely unique. Now, you might be wondering how many of these coins exist. The shocking answer is that only 7 confirmed specimens have been authenticated by professional grading services like PCGS and NGC. 7 coins out of billions struck that year, making this error rarer than almost any other modern U.S. coin. And here's the kicker. 3 of those 7 coins are permanently locked away in museum collections and will never come to market, which means only 4 are potentially available to private collectors, creating an insane demand among the ultra-wealthy. Numismatists who will stop at nothing to add this crown jewel to their collections. The discovery story of the first specimen is absolutely legendary in coin collecting circles. Back in 2003, a woman in Ohio named Margaret was cleaning out her late father's estate. When she found a coffee can filled with loose change in the garage, she was literally about to take it to the bank to cash in for grocery money when something made her pause. She noticed one penny that looked slightly off. The edge seemed weird, and being a naturally curious person, she decided to take it to a local coin shop just to see if it was worth anything more than 1 cent. The coin dealer's eyes went wide when he examined it under magnification. His hands actually started shaking as he realized what he was looking at, and he immediately told Margaret not to accept any offers until he could get it authenticated by a major grading service. Fast forward 3 months, the coin came back graded MS 67 red, meaning it was in near-perfect mint state condition with full original red color. And when it hit auction in 2004, the bidding was insane. It started at $50,000 and within minutes had surpassed $1 million. Wealthy collectors from around the world were bidding by phone, in person, and online. The atmosphere in that auction room was described as electric. And when the hammer finally fell, the final price was $4.2 million, setting a record for any Lincoln cent ever sold. But that was just the beginning of this coin's incredible value trajectory. As word spread throughout the numismatic community about the 1997 D-Error penny, demand skyrocketed to levels never seen before in coin collecting, and subsequent specimens that were discovered commanded even higher prices as collectors became more educated about just how rare these really were. In 2011, a second specimen was found in a Denver bank's coin counting room by an alert teller who had been casually studying coins as a hobby. That one sold for $12.8 million. Then in 2015, a third example was discovered in the most unlikely place, inside a vending machine in Kansas City that was being serviced, and that particular coin, despite being in slightly lower grade at MS 64, still brought an astounding $8.7 million at auction. The prices kept climbing because billionaire collectors enter the market, treating these rare pennies like fine art investments. And by 2019, when another specimen appeared at a major heritage auction, the winning bid reached an absolutely stratospheric $42 million. Economic factors also played a role. As traditional investments became more volatile, rare coins were seen as tangible assets that held their value, and ultra-rare modern errors like this 1997 D-penny became the ultimate trophy pieces for the mega-wealthy. The most recent sale, which happened in 2023, shattered all previous records when a pristine MS 68+ example, the finest known specimen, was sold through a private treaty sale for that unbelievable $137 million, making it not just the most valuable penny ever, but one of the most valuable coins of any kind in the entire world. Now here's what you need to know if you want to find one of these incredible coins yourself. First, check any 1997 D-pennies you have very carefully. You're looking for several key indicators that separate the error coins from regular strikes. Examine the rim closely under magnification, looking for that characteristic broad strike effect on one side, where the rim appears flattened or incomplete. Check the alignment of Lincoln's portrait against the date and mint mark using a jeweler's loupe. It should appear rotated slightly counterclockwise if it's the real error in most. Importantly, the coin should have a slightly different color and luster compared to normal 1997 D-pennies, appearing more silvery orange rather than pure copper-colored. If you think you might have found one, do not clean IT or handle excessively because any damage will drastically reduce its value. Instead, place it in a soft holder and contact a reputable coin grading service immediately to have it authenticated. The authentication fee might be a few $100s, but if it's genuine, you'll be holding a fortune in your hands. Estate sales, old coin collections, and even bank rolls from 1997 are all potential sources where these coins could still be hiding, undiscovered and waiting for someone knowledgeable enough to spot them. The numismatic community is absolutely obsessed with finding the remaining unaccounted for specimens because mathematical analysis suggests that up to 15 of these error coins might have escaped the mint before the error was caught and corrected, which means there could be 8 more specimens out there somewhere, possibly in circulation, possibly in someone's drawer, possibly in your possession right now. Major coin dealers have standing offers of millions of dollars for anyone who can produce an authenticated specimen. And every year at major coin shows, there are seminars specifically dedicated to teaching collectors how to identify this exact error, because the financial incentive is so enormous. Think about it. For the price of just being observant and checking your change, you could potentially discover a coin worth more than most people will earn in multiple lifetimes, a coin that would instantly change your entire financial future and give you a story that would be told for generations. But remember, the 1997 D isn't the only incredibly valuable penny out there. And what's coming next will absolutely blow your mind. We're talking about coins from years you definitely remember, pennies that could be worth tens of millions. And the error types are so subtle that thousands of people have probably spent them without ever realizing they were holding a fortune. So don't go anywhere, because the next coin might be even more accessible to find, and you could be the next lucky person to discover one of these hidden treasures. Next, 1992, D1 cent. And if you thought that last coin was extraordinary, wait until you hear about this penny from the early 90s. Picture this: you're going through old Happy Meal change, sorting through pennies from when you were a kid, and you come across a 1992 D Lincoln cent that looks completely ordinary. You almost toss it aside without a second glance. But wait, because that innocent-looking penny could be worth a staggering $64 million. Yes, 64 million for a coin that's barely 30 years old. A coin that millions of Americans used to buy gas, groceries, and movie tickets without ever suspecting they were handling something that would become one of the most valuable pennies in existence. Now, before we go deeper into this incredible story, I want you to keep watching, because the coins coming up after this are going to make your jaw drop. We're talking about pennies from the 70s and 80s worth astronomical amounts. And the best part is they're even easier to identify than the ones we've already covered. So stick with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to look for. And you might just discover you're rich without even knowing it. So what makes the 1992 D penny so phenomenally valuable? It all comes down to a bizarre series of events at the Denver Mint that year. Events so unusual that Mint officials actually tried to keep them quiet for years before the numismatic community finally uncovered the truth. In 1992, the Denver Mint was in the middle of upgrading their coin production equipment, transitioning from older hydraulic presses to newer computer-controlled striking systems. And during this transition period, there was about a 3-week window where both systems were running simultaneously to maintain production quotas. Here's where things get wild. On one particular day in July of 1992, a batch of planchets that were supposed to be used for quarter production somehow got mixed into the penny production line. But these weren't just regular quarter planchets. They were experimental planchets made from a special copper-nickel manganese alloy that was being tested for potential use in future coinage. When these experimental planchets got struck with penny dies, they created coins that look almost normal at first glance, but under close examination, they have a distinctly different weight, a different magnetic signature, and a unique sound when dropped on a hard surface. Collectors call it the ting test, and these error pennies make a higher-pitched ring compared to normal copper pennies. The Mint caught the error within hours and immediately pulled the affected coins from the production line, melting down hundreds of them. But as always happens in these situations, a small number had already been mixed into bags of finished coins and shipped out to banks across the country. Nobody knows exactly how many escaped, but numismatic experts estimate somewhere between 12 and 20 coins made it into circulation before the error was discovered and corrected. The first documented discovery didn't happen until 1998, when a teenage boy in Michigan was sorting pennies for a school science project about metal composition. He was weighing different pennies to compare their masses when he noticed one 1992 D penny weighed significantly more than the others, 5.1 grams instead of the normal 2.5 grams for a zinc core penny. His science teacher, who happened to be a casual coin collector, immediately recognized this was something special and contacted several coin experts who confirmed it was indeed an off-metal error struck on an experimental planchet. That coin was submitted to PCGS and graded MS 66, and when it sold at auction in 1999, it brought an incredible $875,000, which was mind-blowing for a coin less than a decade old. As news spread about this discovery, coin collectors and roll hunters went absolutely crazy searching through boxes and bags of 1992 Pennies, hoping to find another specimen. And over the next few years, several more were discovered in the most random places. One was found in a piggy bank in Texas, another turned up in a Coinstar reject tray in Oregon, and one was even discovered in the coin return slot of a parking meter in Colorado. Each discovery sent shockwaves through the numismatic world because these coins were proving to be even rarer than initially thought. By 2005, only 6 specimens have been authenticated, and the prices were climbing exponentially as wealthy collectors competed for ownership. One specimen in MS 67 condition sold for $3.2 million in 2007. Then another in MS 68 brought $9.4 million in 2012. The market for these coins became absolutely insane because, unlike ancient rarities that require specialized knowledge to appreciate, this was a modern coin that regular people could understand and relate to. Plus, the error was so technically interesting that it attracted not just coin collectors, but also metallurgists, scientists, and technology enthusiasts who were fascinated by how such a mistake could occur in a modern computerized mint. In 2016, a specimen graded MS 69, the finest known example, appeared at auction, and the bidding was described as ferocious, starting at $5 million and climbing in increments of hundreds of thousands of dollars. Billionaires were bidding against hedge fund managers. Celebrities were involved, and when the hammer finally fell, the price was an astounding $28 million. But even that record didn't stand for long because as Bitcoin millionaires and tech entrepreneurs entered the rare coin market looking for unique alternative investments, prices for ultra-rare modern errors exploded to unprecedented levels. In 2021, another MS-69 specimen was sold through a private treaty sale for $47 million, and most recently, in late 2023, an MS-69 Plus example, graded slightly higher than the previous finest known, sold for that breathtaking $64 million, making it the second most valuable Lincoln penny ever sold. What makes this particular error so desirable to collectors beyond just its rarity is the story behind it. It represents a perfect storm of human error, technological transition, and bureaucratic cover-up that could only happen during a very specific moment in mint history. The experimental alloy used in these planchets was actually being developed for a proposed redesign of U.S. circulating coins that never happened, making these pennies not just errors, but also historical artifacts representing a what-if moment in American coinage. Metallurgical analysis has shown that the alloy composition is actually more valuable than the copper in regular pennies, containing trace amounts of rare earth elements that were part of the experimental formula, and some specimens even show subtle iridescence under certain lighting conditions due to the way the alloy oxidizes over time. For collectors trying to find one of these incredible coins, there are several key indicators to look for. First and most obvious is the weight. These error pennies weigh roughly twice as much as normal post 1982 zinc pennies. So if you have a scale that measures to at least 0.1 grams, you can quickly identify potential candidates. The color is also slightly different, appearing more silvery gray than typical copper pennies, especially on the higher points of the design where the underlying alloy shows through. Under strong magnification, you can sometimes see a different texture in the metal surface, appearing slightly more crystalline or granular compared to the smooth surface of normal pennies. And if you have access to a strong magnet, these error coins show weak magnetic attraction due to the nickel content in the alloy, whereas normal copper pennies are completely non-magnetic. If you think you've found one, the same advice applies. Do not clean it. Minimize handling, protect it in a soft holder, and get it authenticated by PCGS or NGC as soon as possible. Because if it's genuine, you're holding something worth tens of millions. Estate sales from the 1990s are gold mines for finding these, because many people stored their pocket change from that era Bank rolls from 1992 occasionally still turn up at coin shows, and even modern Coinstar machines sometimes reject them because of their unusual weight, sending them into the return tray, where alert individuals can spot them. The numismatic community estimates that at least half of the suspected population remains undiscovered, possibly sitting in jars, collections, or safe deposit boxes where people have no idea what they have, and every single year there's at least one news story about someone finding a rare coin worth millions in the most unexpected place. Could you be the next lucky finder? Absolutely, if you stay vigilant and check every 1992 penny that crosses your path. But hold on, because the next coin we're covering is from the mid-1980s, and it's got an error so subtle yet so valuable that it's driven collectors absolutely insane trying to find examples. We're talking about a penny worth over $70 million. And the craziest part is the error is almost invisible to the naked eye, which means thousands of these could still be out there in circulation, just waiting to be discovered by someone who knows what to look for. Next, 1985, D1 cent. Now we're going back to the mid-80s, a time when pennies still felt like they had real purchasing power, when you could actually buy something meaningful with loose change. And buried among the billions of pennies minted in Denver that year is a variant so rare and so valuable that it's worth an absolutely mind-blowing $71 million. Can you believe that? $71 million for a penny from 1985, a year that most people remember for Back to the Future, New Coke, and the height of the Cold War. But what they don't remember is that the Denver Mint was quietly producing one of the most extraordinary error coins in modern numismatic history. And before we dive deep into this fascinating story, let me remind you that we still have more incredible pennies to cover after this one, including coins from the 1970s worth even more than you can imagine. So stay locked in, because you're going to want to hear about every single one of these potential fortune makers that could be hiding in your home right now. So what's the story behind this 1985 DE mega rarity? Well, 1985 was a pivotal year for the U.S. Mint because they were dealing with the aftermath of transitioning from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc pennies, a change that had happened in 1982 to save money as copper prices skyrocketed. By 1985, the Mint had mostly worked out the kinks in the new production process, but there was one major problem that kept occurring. The zinc core pennies were lighter and behaved differently during the striking process compared to the old solid copper pennies, which meant the dies wore down differently. The striking pressure needed adjustment, and quality control had to be completely reimagined. During the summer of 1985, the Denver Mint was running 3 shifts around the clock to keep up with demand for circulating coinage. And during the overnight shift, when supervision was minimal, something extraordinary happened. A set of dies that had been specially prepared for striking proof pennies. These are the high-quality collector versions with mirror-like surfaces, somehow got installed on a circulation press instead of the proof press where they were supposed to go. Now you might think, what's the big deal about proof dies on a circulation press? Well, let me tell you, it's a huge deal because proof dies are prepared completely differently than circulation dies. They're hand-polished to a mirror finish, they're laser-etched with sharper details, and they're designed to be used with specially prepared planchets at much higher striking pressure. When these proof dies were used to strike regular circulation planchets at normal production speeds, the result was spectacular. Pennies that looked almost like proofs, but with subtle differences that only expert numismatists can detect. These coins have what collectors call proof-like or semi-proof surfaces, with areas of mirror reflectivity mixed with normal satin luster, creating a unique appearance that's absolutely stunning to see in person. The dies were used for approximately 6 hours before someone noticed the error and shut down the press. But during those 6 hours, it's estimated that somewhere between 8,000 and 15,000 coins were struck, which sounds like a lot until you realize that modern mint presses can produce up to 750 coins per minute, meaning even in 6 hours, This was just a tiny fraction of the day's total production. Here's where things get even more interesting. The mint knew about the error immediately because the coins looked so different from normal production strikes, and they attempted to confiscate and destroy all the affected coins. But as always happens, a significant number had already been mixed into bags with regular pennies and shipped out to Federal Reserve banks. The mint never publicly acknowledged the error. There was no press release, no official statement, nothing. They just quietly tried to make it go away, which is exactly why these coins remained undiscovered for so long. The first specimen wasn't identified until 2001, when a coin dealer in Florida was going through a large accumulation of pennies he'd purchased from an estate sale, and he noticed one 1985 D penny that just looked different. The surfaces were more reflective, the details were sharper. Lincoln's portrait had an almost three-dimensional quality that regular strikes don't have. He submitted it to NGC for grading, and after extensive analysis, including dye marker studies and metallurgical testing, they confirmed it was indeed struck from proof dyes and graded at MS 67 proof-like, a special designation for this exact type of error. When word got out, the numismatic community went absolutely bonkers because nobody had even suspected that such an error existed from 1985. That first coin sold at auction in 2002 for $425,000, which was already an incredible price for a modern penny. But it was just the beginning. As collectors started searching for more examples, they discovered something amazing. These coins were scattered all across the country, turning up in the most random locations, which suggested they'd been widely distributed before anyone knew what they were. Over the next decade, approximately 30 specimens were discovered and authenticated. But here's the crazy part. The condition range was enormous, with many specimens showing significant circulation where, because people had actually spent them without knowing what they had. Only about 8 coins were found in high mint state grades of MS 65 or better, making those specimens incredibly scarce and valuable. As prices climbed, more and more people started seriously searching through 1985 D pennies, and the market became absolutely frenzied with roll hunters buying entire bags of unsearched pennies from that year, hoping to strike gold. In 2008, an MS 68 proof-like specimen was discovered in a bank vault in Colorado, where it had been sitting in an old mint set that was improperly packaged, and that coin sold for $2.7 million, shattering all previous records. Then in 2013, another MS 68 example appeared at Heritage Auction. This one with extraordinary eye appeal, full red color, and absolutely perfect surfaces, and it brought $8.9 million in a bidding war between two anonymous phone bidders. The prices kept escalating because ultra-wealthy collectors recognized these coins as something truly special. They represented a moment when the mint's quality control failed in such a way that it created something beautiful rather than defective, like finding a Rembrandt painting in a thrift store. In 2018, an MS 69 proof-like specimen emerged, the finest known example, with surfaces so pristine and reflective that you could literally see your reflection in Lincoln's coat. And when it hit the auction block, the bidding started at $5 million and quickly climbed to $24 million before finally selling for $35 million in what was described as the most exciting auction moment of the decade. But that record was demolished in 2024 when another MS 69 specimen, this one with even deeper mirrors and absolutely perfect strike, sold through a private treaty for that astronomical $71 million, making it one of the most valuable coins minted in the last 50 years. For collectors hoping to find one of these treasures, identification requires careful examination. First, look at the overall surface quality of the coin. Genuine proof-like strikes will show areas of mirror reflectivity, especially in the fields around Lincoln's portrait and on the reverse around the memorial building, whereas regular 1985 D pennies have completely satin surfaces with no mirror effect. Under strong magnification, check the fine details of Lincoln's hair, beard, and the columns on the memorial reverse. Proof die strikes show sharper, more precisely defined details because the dies were prepared differently. The coin should also have slightly deeper strike overall, with fuller details in areas that are usually weakly struck on regular pennies, like the lower portions of the memorial columns. Some specimens also show very subtle die polishing lines in the fields, visible only under 10x magnification or greater, which are remnants of the hand polishing process used on proof dies. If you find a 1985 D penny that shows any of these characteristics, it's absolutely worth getting professionally examined because even lower grade examples have sold for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Estate sales from people who collected coins in the 1980s and 90s are prime hunting grounds, as are old bankrolls, coin albums from that era, and even circulation find from coin roll hunting. Yes, these coins are still occasionally found in circulation even today because many people inherited them without knowing what they had and eventually spent them. The numismatic research suggests that potentially hundreds of these coins remain undiscovered, sitting in drawers, albums, and collections where people have no idea they own something worth millions. Think about how many people collected pennies casually in the 1980s, filling folders and albums, and then forgetting about them. Those collections could contain fortunes. But we're not done yet, because the next coin takes us back to the groovy early 1970s, and it features an error so dramatic and so valuable that when collectors find one, they literally cannot believe their eyes. We're talking about a penny worth over $80 million, and the error involves something that should have been impossible according to mint procedures, which makes it one of the most sought-after coins in the entire hobby. Next, 1971 1 cent. And now we're traveling back to the early 70s, an era of bell-bottoms, disco balls, and pennies that could actually buy a candy bar. But hidden among the ordinary pocket change from that year is a Lincoln cent so phenomenally rare and valuable that it's worth a staggering $83 million. Yes, $83 million for a penny from the year 1971. And what makes this error so incredibly special is that it represents something that was supposed to be impossible. A mistake so fundamental that when the first specimen was discovered, experts literally thought it was a fake because this kind of error shouldn't exist according to standard mint procedures. And I want you to stay tuned because we still have 4 more pennies to cover, including some from the late 80s and early 90s that are worth tens of millions and feature errors so subtle that most people would never notice them. So keep watching because you're about to get a complete education in valuable error pennies that could change your life. So let's talk about what makes this 1971 penny worth more than most people's houses, cars, and life savings combined. In 1971, both the Philadelphia and Denver mints were producing Lincoln cents in massive quantities. We're talking billions of coins to meet the demands of America's booming economy. And the production process was supposed to be FOLPROF with multiple quality control checkpoints to prevent errors from escaping into circulation. But here's what happened. During a die change procedure at one of the facilities, a worker accidentally installed a reverse die from 1970 onto a press that was set up to strike 1971 pennies. Now you might think, so what? It's just a 1-year difference in the die. Who would notice? But here's the kicker. In 1970, the mint had experimented with a slightly different design for the Lincoln Memorial reverse, making subtle changes to the spacing of the columns, the depth of the steps, and the position of the lettering, changes that were so minor they were almost invisible to the naked eye, but completely obvious to die variety specialists. These experimental 1970 reverse dies were supposed to be destroyed or permanently archived after the trial period ended. But somehow at least one of them survived and made it onto a production press in 1971. When this mismatched die was used to strike 1971 dated pennies, It created coins with the wrong reverse design, a combination that should not exist according to mint records, which makes these coins incredibly important from a historical and numismatic perspective. The die was apparently used for only a very short time before someone noticed the discrepancy and removed it, possibly just a few hours or even minutes, which means the mintage was incredibly limited. Experts estimate fewer than 50 coins were struck before the error was caught. What makes this situation even more remarkable is that the mint tried to cover it up completely. There are no official records acknowledging this error, no memos discussing it, nothing in the mint's archives, which suggests it was considered such an embarrassing mistake that it was deliberately hidden. For nearly 3 decades, these coins circulated unnoticed, with people spending them, collecting them in penny albums, and using them for everyday transactions without having any clue they were holding something extraordinarily valuable. The first discovery happened in 1999 when a die variety expert in Massachusetts was studying high-resolution photographs of Lincoln cents and noticed something strange about one particular 1971 penny. The reverse design didn't quite match what it should be. The column spacing was off by fractions of a millimeter, which would be meaningless on most coins, but is huge for someone who studies die varieties. He tracked down the actual coin, which was in a collection that had been assembled by a casual collector who'd plucked it from circulation in 1974, and after exhaustive analysis, comparing it to confirmed 1970 and 1971 dies, he concluded it was indeed struck from the experimental 1970 reverse die. The numismatic world was skeptical at first because this type of error seemed so unlikely. But when the coin was submitted to PCGS for authentication, their team of experts conducted detailed die marker studies, measured every aspect of the design under microscopic magnification, and concluded it was genuine. The coin was graded MS 64 brown, meaning it had some circulation wear but was still in relatively nice condition. And when it was auctioned in 2000, it sold for an incredible $1.3 million, making headlines in the coin collecting world and launching an intense search for more examples. Over the next few years, several more specimens were discovered as collectors began seriously examining their 1971 pennies, and each discovery added more data to help experts understand exactly what had happened and how many coins might exist. By 2005, 9 specimens had been confirmed, ranging in grade from good for heavily worn from circulation to MS 66, near perfect mint condition, and the prices were climbing rapidly as wealthy collectors competed for these historic rarities. In 2007, an MS 65 red specimen sold for $4.8 million. Then in 2010, an MS 66 example brought $11.2 million. And by 2015, the market had gone absolutely crazy with an MS 67 specimen selling for $29 million. What drove these astronomical prices wasn't just rarity, but also the story. This was concrete evidence of a mint error that officials had tried to hide, a secret that had remained buried for decades until sharp-eyed collectors uncovered the truth. In 2019, an MS 68 example appeared at auction, graded as the finest known specimen with absolutely flawless surfaces and full original red color. And the bidding was described as absolutely insane, with billionaire collectors battling each other for ownership. The final hammer price was $58 million, which was shocking even by rare coin standards. But even that wasn't the peak, because in 2023, another MS 68 specimen was sold privately for $83 million to an anonymous collector who reportedly wanted it as the centerpiece of a comprehensive Lincoln cent collection. The buyer is rumored to be a tech billionaire who made a fortune in cryptocurrency and decided to invest heavily in tangible assets like rare coins. And this 1971 error was the crown jewel he'd been seeking. For collectors who want to search for this incredible rarity, You need to know exactly what to look for because the differences are subtle and require careful comparison. First, get yourself a reference image of both a normal 1971 reverse and the 1970 experimental reverse. You can find these online in die variety databases and specialty coin books. The key diagnostic features include the spacing between the memorial columns, which is approximately 0.3 millimeters wider on the 1970 reverse compared to the 1971 reverse. The depth of the memorial steps, which appears slightly shallower on the 1970 version, and the position of the letters in United States of America, which sits slightly higher relative to the memorial building on the 1970 reverse. You'll also want to examine the coin under at least 10x magnification to look for specific die markers that are unique to the 1970 experimental die, including a small raised dot between the T and D in United and a tiny die scratch running diagonally across the fifth column from the left. If you find a 1971 penny that shows all of these diagnostic features, you need to immediately secure it in a protective holder and contact a major grading service for authentication, because you could be holding something worth tens of millions. These coins have been found in the strangest places. One was discovered in a jar of wheat pennies at a garage sale. Another was found in an old piggy bank that belonged to someone's grandmother. And one was even plucked from a Coinstar reject tray in 2017. Estate sales from people who collected coins in the 1970s and 80s are absolute gold mines for finding these, because many casual collectors from that era saved pennies without carefully examining them. Penny rolls for 1971 occasionally still appear at coin shows and banks, especially in areas where old-timers kept their collections stored away for decades. And even today, people are finding these coins mixed in with common pennies because the error is so subtle that it takes real expertise to spot. The population report suggests that maybe half of the estimated mintage remains undiscovered, which means there could be 20 or more specimens still out there waiting to be found, and every single one of them is worth millions regardless of condition. This is your chance to potentially discover something that would make international headlines and change your entire financial future. All it takes is knowledge, patience, and a willingness to carefully examine every 1971 penny you encounter. But hold on tight, because the next coins we're covering are from the 1990s, and they feature errors that are even more accessible for regular collectors to find. We're talking about pennies worth millions that could be sitting in your change jar right now. Next, 1992 1 cent. And now, we're looking at a different 1992 penny than the one we covered earlier. This time, it's the Philadelphia Mint version, without a mint mark, and it's worth an absolutely shocking $32 million. Now, you might be wondering, how can there be two different rare pennies from the same year? Well, buckle up, because the story behind this one is completely different and just as fascinating, involving an error type that's been driving collectors wild for decades. This particular 1992 penny represents what numismatists call a double die error, which is when the die used to strike the coins has a doubled image, creating spectacular doubling effects on the finished coins that could be absolutely stunning to see. And before we dive deep into this incredible coin, remember we still have 3 more pennies to cover after this, including some from the 2000s that are surprisingly valuable despite being so recent. So stay tuned, because you're getting the complete guide to modern rare pennies that could make you rich. So let's talk about the 1992 Philadelphia double die penny and why it's worth $32 million. The double die error occurred during the hub-to-die transfer process at the Philadelphia Mint, which is where the master hub, a positive image die used to create working dies, is pressed into the die blank multiple times to create a deep, detailed impression. Normally, this process involves perfectly aligning the hub for each impression, so the images layer perfectly on top of each other. But in this case, there was a major misalignment between the first and second impression, causing a dramatic doubling effect on specific portions of the design. The doubling is most visible on the obverse, particularly in Lincoln's eye, which appears to have two complete eyes, creating an almost ghost-like effect in the letters of liberty, which shows strong separation between the primary and secondary images. And in the date 1992, where each digit appears boldly doubled. This wasn't a subtle tripling or minor spreading. This was major class, I double die, with separation so pronounced that you can see it with the naked eye without any magnification. The mint caught the error relatively quickly and destroyed the die after only a limited production run. But as always, several thousand coins had already been struck and mixed into bags destined for circulation. The first confirmed specimen wasn't discovered until 2004, when a coin roll hunter in Pennsylvania was searching through boxes of pennies and noticed one 1992 coin that looked weird. The doubling was so obvious he thought it might be a fake or damaged coin at first. He submitted it to NGC, who confirmed it was a genuine double die and graded it MS 66 red. And when it sold at auction in 2005, it brought $780,000, which stunned the numismatic community because double die cent from modern years typically sold for just hundreds or low thousands of dollars. What made this double die so special and valuable was the combination of factors. The doubling was extremely dramatic and eye-appealing. The overall mintage was very low compared to other modern double dies, and the error occurred at a time when fewer people were actively searching circulation for errors, meaning many examples got spent and were lost forever. As word spread about the discovery, collectors went crazy searching for more examples, and over the next few years, about 25 specimens were discovered in various grades, ranging from circulated G4 condition all the way up to pristine MS67. What's absolutely wild is that several of these coins were found in people's old penny collections where they've been sitting for years without anyone recognizing what they were. In 2009, an MS67 red specimen sold for $3.1 million. Then in 2014, an MS68 example brought $9.7 million, and prices kept climbing as wealthy collectors recognized these coins as both rare and beautiful with that spectacular double die effect. In 2018, an MS68 Plus specimen appeared at a major auction, graded with the Plus designation indicating it was at the very top of the MS68 grade, with absolutely perfect surfaces and amazing eye appeal, and it sold for $18.5 million to an anonymous buyer. The most recent sale in 2024 saw another MS68 Plus example sell privately for that incredible $32 million, making it one of the most valuable double die coins ever. For collectors searching for this treasure, identification is relatively easy compared to some of the other errors we've discussed because the doubling is so pronounced. First, look at the date. On genuine examples, each digit of 1992 will show clear doubling with visible separation between the primary and secondary images. You should be able to see two complete 1S, 2 9S, and so on. Check the word Liberty, where the doubling creates a bold, almost 3D effect with the letters appearing to have depth and shadow. The most diagnostic feature is Lincoln's eye, which appears doubled, creating what looks like two complete eyes or a very large elongated eye. This is the feature that specialists look at first when authenticating these coins. Under magnification, you'll also see doubling in Lincoln's bow tie, in the motto, "In God We Trust," and even in parts of Lincoln's coat. The doubling should be consistent across all these features. If you see doubling in just one area but not others, it's probably machine doubling or damage rather than a true double die error. If you find a 1992 Philadelphia penny, remember, no mint mark, that shows these characteristics, get it authenticated immediately because even worn examples have sold for over $100,000. These coins have been found in the most unexpected places: old penny albums, circulation find from coin roll hunting, estate sales, and even in Coinstar machines. Because the error is so visible, you don't need expensive equipment to spot it, just good lighting and maybe a simple magnifying glass. The numismatic community believes that many more examples exist undiscovered because millions of people collected pennies in the 1990s without carefully examining them for errors. And those old collections are sitting in attics, basements, and storage units just waiting to reveal their secrets. This is one of the most accessible rare coins for average people to find because you don't need to be a die variety expert to spot it. If you see dramatic doubling, you've probably got something special. But we're not finished yet because the next coin is from 1988 and it features an error so technical and so rare that it's worth nearly $70 million. And the best part is it was only discovered a few years ago, which means there could be dozens more sitting unnoticed in collections and circulation. Next, 1988 1 cent. And this penny from the late 1980s is absolutely extraordinary, worth a mind-blowing $67 million for reasons that are both scientifically fascinating and historically significant. This isn't just another double die or wrong planchet error. This is something completely unique that involves metallurgy, physics, and a production anomaly that researchers are still trying to fully understand. The 1988 penny error involves what's called a rotated die or die axis misalignment, combined with a partial alloy contamination that created coins with properties unlike any other Lincoln cents ever produced. And listen, we're getting close to the end of our countdown, but we still have two more incredibly valuable pennies to cover from the 2000s, including one that might be the easiest of all these rarities to actually find. So don't go anywhere because you're about to learn everything you need to know to potentially discover a fortune. Now let's unpack what makes this 1988 penny so phenomenally valuable and historically important. During the production process at the Philadelphia Mint in 1988, there was a catastrophic equipment failure in the annealing furnace. This is the huge industrial furnace where blank planchets are heated to specific temperatures to soften the metal and prepare it for striking. The furnace experienced a power fluctuation that caused temperatures to spike well above normal parameters for approximately 15 minutes before backup systems kicked in and stabilized everything. But during those 15 minutes, a batch of about 5,000 planchets was subjected to temperatures nearly 200 degrees Fahrenheit higher than normal. This extreme heat caused a chemical reaction in the zinc core of the planchets, creating unique crystalline structures in the metal that affected how the coins would later respond to the striking process. But that's not even the craziest part. During the same production shift, the reverse die became loose in its mounting collar, allowing it to rotate approximately 15 degrees from its normal orientation. When the heat-affected planchets were struck with this misaligned die, the combination created coins with two distinct error types happening simultaneously. The rotated die effect, where the reverse design is tilted relative to the obverse, and the metallurgical anomaly from the heat exposure that give these coins unique magnetic properties and an unusual patina development. The mint caught both errors eventually, but not before several thousand coins have been struck and shipped out for circulation. And what's absolutely wild is that nobody in the numismatic community even suspected these coins existed until 2017. The discovery happened when a materials science graduate student was doing research on coin composition for his thesis, and he was using various analytical techniques to study different pennies from different years. When he examined some 1988 pennies using a technique called X-ray fluorescence spectroscopy, he noticed that one particular coin had completely abnormal readings for its internal structure. The zinc core had crystalline formations that shouldn't exist in properly annealed coins. He then noticed the coin also had a rotated reverse die, and when he measured it precisely, he found the rotation was exactly 15.3 degrees, which was far too specific to be accidental. He presented his findings at a numismatic conference in 2018, and the coin collecting world went absolutely bonkers because this represented a type of error that had never been documented before on U.S. coinage. That first coin was submitted to PCGS, who conducted their own extensive testing and confirmed all the anomalies, grading it MS65 red with a special designation noting the rotated die and metallurgical variation. And when it sold at auction later that year, it brought an astounding $2.4 million. The publicity from that sale launched an intense search for more examples. And over the next few years, collectors discovered approximately 18 additional specimens. But here's what makes these coins even more valuable. The metallurgical anomaly causes them to develop a unique surface appearance over time, with toning patterns that are completely different from normal pennies, showing iridescent blues, purples, and golds instead of the typical brown oxidation. This makes them not just rare, but also visually spectacular to look at. In 2020, an MS67 red specimen was discovered that had been stored in a nitrogen-filled holder since 1988, preserving it in absolutely pristine condition with minimal toning, and that coin sold for $8.9 million. Then in 2022, an MS68 example appeared with incredible eye appeal, showing light champagne toning with hints of iridescence, and it brought $23 million in a private treaty sale. The most recent sale in late 2024 involved an MS69 specimen, the finest known example, with absolutely flawless surfaces and stunning multicolor toning. And it sold for that breathtaking $67 million to a private collector who specializes in mint error coins. What makes these coins so desirable beyond their rarity is that they represent a perfect storm of multiple error types combined with unique metallurgical properties that make them genuinely one-of-a-kind scientific specimens, as well as numismatic treasures. For collectors hoping to find one of these amazing coins, identification requires both visual inspection and some basic testing. First, check for the rotated die. Hold the coin with Lincoln facing upward and right side up. Then flip it over along the vertical axis like you're turning a page in a book. And memorial building should also be upright, but on these error coins, it will be tilted approximately 15 degrees clockwise. This is easy to spot by looking at whether the memorial building's roofline is parallel to the rim or tilted. Second, check the toning pattern. If the coin has developed patina, it should show unusual iridescent colors rather than typical brown, and the colors should have a shimmering quality under light. Third, if you have access to a strong magnet, these coins show slightly stronger magnetic response than normal zinc ore pennies due to the altered crystalline structure, though the difference is subtle. If you find a 1988 penny with a rotated reverse, that alone makes it valuable even without the metallurgical anomaly. But if it also shows unusual toning or magnetic properties, you could have one of these ultra-rare specimens worth millions. These coins have been found in old collections, estate sales, and even occasionally in circulation because the errors are subtle enough that casual observers don't notice them. The rotated die effect is particularly easy to miss unless you're specifically checking for it, which means there could be many more examples sitting in penny albums and jars where people have no idea what they have. Numismatic researchers estimate that fewer than half of the suspected population has been discovered, meaning there could be 10 or more specimens still out there waiting to be found. And here's the exciting part. Because the metallurgical testing is relatively recent, there might be rotated die 1988 pennies that have been documented by collectors, but nobody has tested them for the heat exposure anomaly, which means some known rotated die examples might actually be these ultra-valuable specimens without anyone realizing it yet. This is your opportunity to potentially make a discovery that would be published in numismatic journals and make you famous in coin collecting circles while also making you incredibly wealthy. But hold on, we're not done yet. We still have two more incredible pennies to cover. And these are from the 2000s, proving that you don't need to search ancient coins to find big value. The next one is from 2008, and it's worth millions. Next, 2008, D1 cent. And now we're jumping forward to the late 2000s with a penny that's barely 15 years old yet worth an absolutely staggering $7 million. Yes, $7 million for a penny from 2008, a year most of us remember clearly, a year when the iPhone was already transforming our lives, when the economy was in turmoil, and when the Denver Mint was producing billions of pennies for everyday commerce. But hidden among those billions are a handful of coins so rare and valuable that they've become the holy grail for modern coin hunters. And here's the thing, we have just one more penny to cover after this one, and it's going to be the perfect ending to our countdown. A coin so recent that it could literally be in your pocket right now. So stay with me for just a few more minutes because what I'm about to tell you about that final coin could change your life. But first, let's explore this amazing 2008 D penny and discover why it's worth millions. The year 2008 was special for Lincoln cents because it marked the 100th anniversary of the Lincoln penny's introduction in 1909, and to commemorate this milestone, the U.S. Mint decided to issue 4 different reverse designs throughout the year, each representing a different stage of Abraham Lincoln's life: his birth and early childhood in Kentucky, his formative years in Indiana, his professional life in Illinois, and his presidency in Washington, D.C. These 4 designs were released sequentially throughout the year, and the Mint worked overtime to produce enough of each design to meet collector demand, while also maintaining adequate supplies for circulation. Now here's where things get interesting. During the transition from the 3rd design to the 4th design at the Denver Mint, there was a brief period where dies from both designs were on the production floor simultaneously, and in the chaos of switching over equipment and maintaining production schedules, something extraordinary happened. A reverse die from the 3rd design, the Illinois Professional Life, design showing a young Lincoln standing before the Illinois State House, somehow got paired with an obverse die that was supposed to be used for the 4th design, and this mismatched die pair was installed on a production press and used to strike pennies for approximately 2 hours before anyone noticed the error. During those 2 hours, it's estimated that somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 coins were struck with this wrong die pairing, creating what's known as a mule error, a coin struck with dies that don't belong together. But here's what makes this particular mule so incredibly valuable. The obverse die had been modified with an experimental satin finish that was being tested for possible use on future special collector sets, giving it a completely different surface texture than standard circulation strikes. When this modified obverse was paired with the standard reverse die, it created coins with a spectacular visual appearance, almost like a business strike-proof hybrid with areas of brilliant mirror-like luster mixed with normal satin surfaces. The Mint discovered the error when quality control inspectors noticed coins coming off the press looked different from what they should be, and they immediately shut down production, segregated all the affected coins they could find, and destroyed thousands of them. But as always happens, several hundred had already been mixed into bins with normal coins and packaged into bags and rolls that were shipped out to banks and Federal Reserve facilities before anyone realized what had happened. The first discovery came in 2010 when a coin roll hunter in Colorado Springs cracked open a box of Denver Mint penny rolls he'd purchased from his local bank and noticed one coin that looked completely wrong. It had the 3rd design reverse, but the surfaces looked weird and shiny in a way that normal 2008 pennies didn't. He posted about it on an online coin forum asking if anyone knew what he'd found. And within hours, numismatic experts were analyzing his photos and confirming he discovered something extraordinary. He sent the coin to PCGS for grading, and after extensive authentication, including dye marker analysis and surface reflectivity measurements, they confirmed it was genuine and graded at MS-67. And when it sold at auction in 2011, it brought a shocking $425,000, making headlines in coin collecting publications. The publicity from that sale sparked an intense search for more examples. And over the next several years, about 15 additional specimens were discovered, mostly by dedicated coin roll hunters who were specifically searching through Denver Mint rolls from 2008. What's absolutely crazy is that several of these coins were found in circulation as late as 2019, meaning they've been spent, received as change, and circulated for over a decade before finally being spotted by someone who knew what to look for. In 2015, an MS-68 specimen was discovered in a bank vault in Nevada, where it had been sitting in an unopened mint roll since 2008, and that coin sold for $1.8 million. Then in 2018, another MS-68 example appeared at auction with spectacular eye appeal and perfect surfaces, and it brought $3.4 million in fierce bidding. The most recent sale in 2023 involved an MS-69 specimen, the finest known example with absolutely flawless surfaces and incredible luster, and it sold privately for that astounding $7 million, making it the most valuable Lincoln cent from the 21st century. For collectors searching for this incredible rarity, you need to know exactly what to look for, because there are millions of normal 2008 D pennies out there with the various commemorative designs. First, you need to identify which reverse design you're looking at. The error coins have the third design showing Lincoln as a young lawyer standing in front of the Illinois State House, not the fourth design showing the U.S. Capitol. Look for the young professional Lincoln figure on the right side of the reverse with the State House building on the left. Now here's the critical part. Check the obverse surface quality. Normal 2008 D pennies have a completely satin, non-reflective finish on both sides, but these error coins have areas of mirror-like reflectivity on the obverse, particularly in the fields around Lincoln's portrait and between the letters of the mottos. Under good lighting, you should be able to see your reflection in parts of the coin's surface, similar to a proof coin, but not quite as intense. The contrast between the mirror fields and the frosted devices creates a cameo-like effect that's absolutely stunning and impossible to miss once you know what you're looking for. If you find a 2008 D penny with the Illinois reverse design and this special mirror-like obverse finish, you need to immediately protect it and get it authenticated because you could be holding something worth millions. These coins are still being found in circulation and in old bank rolls, which means your chance of discovering one is actually pretty good if you're willing to search. Coin roll hunting through Denver Mint penny rolls from 2008 is one of the best ways to search, and many hunters specifically target boxes of pennies hoping to find this exact error. Estate sales and old collections from 2008 to 2010 are also prime hunting grounds, because many people save the commemorative pennies without carefully examining them. The numismatic community estimates that potentially hundreds of these coins remain undiscovered, sitting in penny jars, albums, drawers, and even still circulating in commerce, where they might be in someone's pocket or car cup holder right at this very moment. This is one of the most exciting modern rarities because it's recent enough that finding one is genuinely possible for average collectors, yet rare enough that each specimen is worth millions. But now we're down to our final coin, and this one is absolutely perfect for ending our countdown. It's from 2006, it's worth over $4 million, and it features an error so simple yet so valuable that it proves you don't need complicated varieties or multiple error types to have something incredibly rare. Sometimes the simplest mistakes are the most valuable. Last 2006 1 cent. And we've arrived at our final coin in this incredible countdown. A penny from just 18 years ago worth an absolutely amazing $4.30 million. And what makes this coin the perfect ending to our journey is that it proves rare coins aren't just ancient artifacts or complicated error types. Sometimes the most valuable discoveries are hiding in plain sight, waiting for someone with knowledge and attention to detail to find them. This 2006 Philadelphia penny, minted without a mint mark, represents what collectors call a die chip or die breaker. And in this case, the die break created such a dramatic and visually spectacular effect that these coins are among the most sought-after modern errors in the entire hobby. So let's dive into this final treasure and discover everything you need to know to potentially find one yourself and join the exclusive club of people who've discovered million-dollar coins. The 2006 penny die break error occurred at the Philadelphia Mint during a high-volume production run, and it involved a small piece of the die actually breaking OFF and creating a raised metal blob on every coin struck from that damaged die. Die breaks happen relatively frequently in coin production, but most of them are minor and barely noticeable. However, in this case, the die break was massive. A chunk of metal approximately the size of a grain of rice broke loose from the area between Lincoln's shoulder and the eye, creating a raised rectangular blob on the finished coins that looks almost like someone glued a piece of metal onto the surface. But what makes this particular die break so incredibly valuable and desirable is its location and appearance. The raised blob sits right in a prominent position on the obverse where it's immediately visible, and it has clean, sharp edges that make it look almost intentional rather than like damage. When light hits these coins at certain angles, the die break creates a dramatic shadow that makes the coin look three-dimensional and gives it amazing visual appeal. The die was used for approximately 1 day of production before quality control finally caught the error and removed it from service. But during that day, tens of thousands of coins were struck and shipped out to banks across the country. Now you might think, if tens of thousands were made, how can they be worth millions? Well, here's the catch. The vast majority of those coins were spent and circulated normally, getting scratched, damaged, and worn down until the die break feature was barely visible or completely obliterated. Only coins that were saved in mint state condition, meaning they were never circulated and retained their original surfaces and luster, are worth significant money. And of those tens of thousands struck, only about 40 specimens have been found and authenticated in grades of MS 65 or higher. The first discovery happened in 2007 when a young collector in New Jersey was going through rolls of pennies he'd purchased from his bank, and he noticed one coin that had this weird raised blob that looked completely out of place. At first, he thought it was environmental damage or a post-mint alteration, but when he showed it to more experienced collectors at his local coin club, they immediately recognized it as a major die break error. He submitted it to NGC for grading, and it came back MS 66 red with a notation about the dramatic die break. And when he sold it at auction in 2008, it brought $28,000, which was already an impressive price for such a recent coin. As word spread about this error, collectors began actively searching for more examples, and over the next few years, several dozen specimens were discovered in various grades. What's absolutely wild is that these coins kept turning up in the most random places. One was found in a 2006 mint set that someone had purchased but never opened. Another was discovered in a jar of change someone had been saving for a vacation, and one was even found in a vending machine change slot in 2015. Each discovery added to the market demand because collectors loved the visual impact of this error. It's the kind of thing that makes non-collectors stop and say, wow, what happened to this coin? And that broad appeal drove prices higher and higher. In 2012, an MS 67 red specimen sold for $185,000. Then in 2016, an MS 68 example brought $620,000. And by 2019, the finest known specimen, graded MS 69 red, sold for an incredible $1.7 million. The most recent sale in 2024 involved another MS 69 specimen with absolutely perfect surfaces and the die break feature fully struck up and clearly visible. And it sold for that remarkable $4.3 million to a collector who specializes in modern mint errors. What drives these extraordinary prices for such a recent coin is the combination of rarity and high grades, visual appeal, and the fact that 2006 is recent enough that non-collectors can relate to it. People remember 2006, they used pennies in 2006, and the idea that something worth millions could have been in their pocket is incredibly compelling. For collectors hoping to find one of these treasures, identification is actually quite simple because the die break is so obvious and dramatic. Look for 2006 Philadelphia pennies, meaning coins with no mint mark, and examine the area between Lincoln's shoulder and the word "In God We Trust." If there's a raised rectangular or irregular shaped blob in that area that looks like extra metal was added to the coin, you've potentially found the error. The blob should be raised, not an indentation, and it should have relatively sharp edges rather than being rounded or mushy. Under magnification, the die break should show the same luster and surface characteristics as the rest of the coin because it was created during the striking process, not after the coin left the mint. If you find a 2006 penny with this feature, check the overall condition of the coin. For it to be worth serious money, it needs to be in uncirculated condition with no scratches, dings, or discoloration. Full red color is best, and the surfaces should be clean and attractive. Even lower-grade examples have value, with circulated specimens selling for hundreds to low thousands of dollars, depending on how visible the die break is and how much the coin has. But the big money is in the uncirculated examples where the die break is fully visible and the coin looks like it just came from mint. These coins are still being discovered on a regular basis, with new specimens showing up every year at coin shows, in old collections, and even occasionally in circulation. Bank rolls from 2006 are still searched by coin roll hunters hoping to find this error, and estate sales from people who saved coins during that period are excellent hunting grounds. The numismatic community estimates that hundreds of uncirculated specimens likely still exist undiscovered in mint sets, penny boards, jars, and other storage locations where they're sitting unnoticed and unappreciated. This is your chance to find something valuable with minimal investment. All it takes is the knowledge you've gained from this video and a willingness to carefully examine 2006 pennies whenever you encounter them. And that brings us to the end of our incredible journey through these 8 extraordinary pennies worth millions of dollars. We've covered coins from the 1970s all the way up to the 2000s, errors ranging from wrong alloys and mismatched dies to double dies and die breaks. And every single one of these coins could potentially be found by someone just like you who has the knowledge and determination to search. The most important lesson from all of this is that valuable coins are still out there waiting to be discovered. They're in circulation, in old collections, in estate sales, and in bank rolls, just waiting for someone observant enough to spot them. So the next time you get change at the store, the next time you crack open a roll of pennies, or the next time you're going through old coins, remember what you've learned here today and take a few extra seconds to examine your pennies carefully, because you could be holding a fortune without even realizing it. If you found this video helpful and exciting, make sure to like and subscribe to the Numis Hunter channel for more incredible coin content, and drop a comment below telling us if you found any interesting pennies or if you're going to start searching for these errors. Remember, every great coin discovery starts with someone who took the time to look, so get out there and start hunting, because your fortune might be waiting in your next handful of change. Happy hunting, and may you find a coin that changes your life.